In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. That's close. Was, is, and what else? Always shall be. Past, present, future. Christ is in our midst. I heard an is first. It's somewhere over here. Somewhere over here. You know, when we talk about stewardship, the past 2 weeks I've been talking about stewardship, kind of an overview. The first week, last week was time. This week is talents, and next week is treasures on our Stewardship Sunday. But I was thinking, from maybe your perspective, why is talent part of stewardship? What does it have to really do with stewardship? And I was thinking that sometimes we segregate our perceptions of what stewardship is to merely finances. But what we have to understand stewardship really being is the gifts that God has given us, how we return them back to Him. So stewardship is a word that embodies a lot of different things. It embodies all the things that God has given us as gifts. He's given us time as a gift. He's given us our jobs and everything that we have as a gift. And He's also given something that I will talk about today, talents as a gift. And if we think about the gift of talent, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes, you know, in the different programs and things we talk to the children and even some of the adult programs, and sometimes I'll hear somebody say, I don't have any talents at all. I can't do anything. And that's not true. Everyone has some kind of talent. And if we look at what Socrates reminds us, one of the earliest kind of pseudo-Christian philosophers, he says that the life that is not contemplated, the life without self-reflection, is a life that is not worth living. Likewise, as Christians, in the Gospels, Christ reminds us that He has given us talents, some more than others, but He's given everybody something. Whether it's one talent, maybe it's one thing that you're good at. Maybe it's a dozen things that you're good at. But Christ gives each one of us talents, and what does He say? He says, here's your talents, the parable of the talents, and He says, take these and I'll be back to collect them at some point in time. And if you'll all recall that story, He's very happy with the one who made something out of the talents, invested it and made more. He's very disappointed, though, with those who did nothing, the ones who buried or squandered or wasted. Because what does God give us? He gives us everything. And if we return back to Him nothing, how are we stewards of the gifts that He gives us? That is the question. If God gives us something as a gift and says, here, I'm giving this to you as a gift, and we destroy it or we waste it, how have we appreciated that gift? That's why talent is part of stewardship. Because God has given us each something, but maybe we don't know what that is yet. And that's why it's an important part of stewardship as well, because we're called as Christians to look inside and to see what God has given us. To see the talents that He's given us, the skills and all those things that are there, but sometimes just not discovered. You know, it's interesting as parents, we expose our children to so many things. You're going to play soccer, you're going to play baseball, you're going to play volleyball, and we book our kids for like a million different things, hoping that they're going to find something that develops inside of them. And sometimes we hear kids say, you know, I didn't really like soccer, but I'm pretty good at it, and I enjoy it now. Or I never thought to sit down and play a piano, but I really enjoy it, or I'm good at it. So we expose our families to certain things to culture them. How many of you, I'm sure it's probably a raise of hands of everybody in the church. You don't have to raise your hands though. How many of you have sat a plate in front of your child at the table and said, just try it and see if you like it. Just give it a chance. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. And then they taste it and it's like, oh, what is that? And a lot of times we shut ourselves down, even as children, not to receive something that we might actually appreciate. So what does God tell us? He tells us, don't close yourself up as an adult or as a child or as anyone. Don't shut yourself down and not open your heart to God to receive what He's given you. Because a lot of times we have these things that God's given us inside, and we turn them over and we cover them up with, I'm too busy, I don't have the energy, I don't have the desire, I don't have the taste buds to do this, and we bury the talents that God has given within us, and we bury them and never develop, cultivate, or even discover them. So what is stewardship of talents? To find out what God has given you, to look inside yourself, to take time to have some introspection and look and say, what has God given me? Is it the ability to cook only? Is that all I can do is cook? Well, then cook for someone who's in need. Is it the ability to be patient, more so than anyone else you know? Then be patient with someone who needs time and an ear for someone who is in desperation. See, a lot of times we think of our talents as visible talents. I can write icons, or I can sing, or I can dance, or whatever those things are that visually people understand. And if we think about the talents in the world, many times we think of actors and musicians. And we say, oh, they can act, they can sing. Why? Because it's a visible talent. But someone like Mother Teresa, who had the talent of sacrifice, and although she's not Orthodox, she wasn't Orthodox, that doesn't matter. She gave of her life to help those in need. So she had a talent. And what was that talent? To sit down with those who were destitute and to share her life and the love of God that she had with those who didn't know it, who didn't know who God was. That was a talent that she found in her life and developed that talent. So many times, don't think of the talents as, boy, I can't do anything around the church because I don't know how to patch drywall, or I don't know how to use a carpet cleaner, or I don't, I can't do certain things, I can't decorate, or whatever those things are. Those are the visual things that people understand. But what can you do from the talents that you have on the inside? That's what stewardship is about. What can you do to offer someone that they don't have that God has given you? Think about it. Because those are the things that live beyond the walls. They live beyond the simple mortar and bricks of the church. Those are the things that we invest in other people that are the treasures that we have for ourselves in the kingdom of heaven. So what are our talents? I think everyone in this church, if you don't think you have a talent, if you are an Orthodox Christian, if you are a Christian, and period, then you have been given the talent by God to love. If you don't think you have that, then you don't have God within you. But everyone in this church has the talent to love. Whether or not you have developed it or cultivated it, you have it. Because that is something that you're given as an Orthodox Christian and as a Christian throughout the world. If you are a Christian, you have another talent too. And maybe you haven't developed it, maybe you choose to bury it, but it's another thing that God gives us, and He gives us the example from the cross. And what is that? To forgive. That's a talent. And if you think about it, those who we look to in the world and around us in our families, and we say, I can't believe they forgave so-and-so what they did. And we say, wow, that's a gift, or that's a talent. I think we've all referred to it as that, or something that it's a Christian virtue, that somehow we refer to it as a talent that's unachievable. I can't believe how much time they spend doing things for the church, or I can't believe how much they give, or how much they forgive, or love, or share. Those are talents that you all have. Forget piano playing, forget soccer, forget golf. Those are the talents that save you, that save others around you, are the talents of the virtues that you have instilled in you through your Christianity. You know, if we think about stewardship, and as we approach stewardship, and this dimension of talents, we really have to think about, and I've been charging you for last week to find time to devote time. So it's not just you get your stewardship card next week and you look at the check marks on there and you say, wow, I can afford this or whatever, and then you submit it in. I don't want just that from you. I want you to think as you sign the card and you submit it to make a pledge, not on paper, but a pledge to God as you lay your card in the basket in front of the icon of Christ to say, I'm going to spend more time this year in the programs of the church. I'm going to spend more time finding out what my talents are and developing some of the talents that God has given me. I'm going to use my time and not waste it. I'm going to be introspective. I'm going to share. And I'm going to try to be a disciple just like Christ calls us to be. Those are the things that go beyond the simple dollar amount on your stewardship card. And believe me, if you do those other things first, if you devote time to God, you don't waste your time, you spend time in prayer, you develop the talents that God has given you, then money in this parish will be a thing that we had to worry about in the past. Because you will have a different disposition in your heart of what the church is trying to do, what the church needs, and what you can offer. Because you will not just think of it as dollars and cents. You will think of it as common sense. Common sense to give my time to God, common sense to give my life to God through discovering my talents. Now, if you think talents, talking today about talents is something that you say, well, I can work on it. Or I'll wait till New Year's. I'll get all my bad stuff in and then I'll make a New Year's resolution. I'll cover two birds with one stone and say, New Year's Day, I'm gonna stop this and I'll start this and I'll do that. And I always love those commercials with all the exercise equipment and that, what's that guy? Something Little, John, what is it? No, Little. Somebody, Tony Little. The guy who's got way too much energy and a bizarre haircut, and he's selling all these different exercise equipment things the first of the year, and then he's gone again until a couple weeks from now when he'll show up again. And if you get up early and happen to flip through the channels to find the news, you'll see this guy selling everything from like barbells that fill up with water to ab cruncher and the bun burner and the thighs, steel, whatever I don't know what that stuff is. But then it disappears because the energy disappears. But as Christians, we're called to be energetic. We're called to refuel ourselves because we keep getting drained over and over and over and over. I need help with this. What do? We pour a little of our life into that person. Someone needs help. We pour a little of our life in here. But we have to keep refueling. Otherwise, we go empty. And what Christ calls us to do in the Gospels is not to go empty. Don't waste and don't show up to the kingdom of heaven without your talents. Because He's not going to be happy. He's going to look and say, I can't believe you wasted it. You had the church. And as we heard in the gospel reading last week with Lazarus and the rich man, and He sends them back and He says, you had Moses and the prophets to tell you. Didn't you listen to them? Didn't you listen to what the church was saying? And you show up with nothing. Now, as Greeks and as, stranger welcoming ethnic people that we are, we go to someone's home, we usually show up with something. And it's always interesting too, even though, I've been to like hundreds of receptions and people's homes and stuff, and it's always interesting sometimes when you go to somebody's house and then somebody walks in and they're, adia tequeria, they don't have anything, they can't reach in their pockets to get anything or whatever, and they walk in and sometimes you'll see in the person's eye, they look and they, oh, it's a freeloader, or they just showed up. And not to say, you're laughing because you probably do that too. You're probably like, oh, or even like I had mentioned a couple weeks ago with Christmas presents, the tick for tack back. He gave me a $4 gift, I'll give him a $3.98 gift plus tax, that's $4.06, and we're done, So we have to make sure that if we have that perception, and God has given us all these things on loan, on loan because you don't own anything. You don't own anything in your life except borrowing it. The breaths that you take, the heartbeats that you have are on loan from God. Because when God calls it back, not even the best doctor in the world can bring you back. And Walt Disney is waiting on ice to come back, and it's not going to happen. You know why? Because it's a gift from God, and only God gives that gift of life. But He also gives us the talents as gifts. He gives us our time as gifts, and He gives us our wealth as gifts. And if you think you're poor, look at the demographics throughout the world, and the poorest indigent people in the United States of America are some of the wealthiest people in the world. That's hard to believe, isn't it? That someone on food stamps or a homeless person here actually has more chance to become wealthy and has more wealth just by being here and having access to funds, to other people helping, than any other place in the world. So we have it as a gift. And when we go before God and He says, okay, and like I'm trying to make you think of different scenarios. So God doesn't say, how much time did you spend on me this time? You go before Him and He says, okay, give me back the talents. Show me what you did with your talents. Show me how you forgave someone or how you loved someone who had a difficulty receiving love. Show me how you spent time to be patient with someone who needed your help. What if He were to ask us those questions? Because He's going to ask for it back. He's going to ask for your talents back because He did that in the Gospels. And He doesn't say anything in the Gospels that He doesn't mean. And He says them as examples. So He's either going to be happy with us, apathetic with us, which in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, He says if you are lukewarm, you get spit out anyways, or He's going to be very disappointed with us. So look inside yourselves for this new stewardship year and say, what can I give and to others from my talents? How can I develop them? Because that will make you a full, well-rounded steward of the church. Not just money, not just time, but also your talents. Amen.